straight at Keith. I said, him. And they looked and said, what?
Yeah.
And I said, yep. He happened to tweet out that we should get Brad Friedel and tag Brad Friedel, and Brad replied, well, how can I help? And it all snowballed from there.
Yeah.
You want to know
we'll share our Brad Friedel story in a little bit, because
right.
you got to wait for that.
Yeah.
Well, my biggest regret of the entire trip was I wasn't quite sure. I thought that I was in line for 2 tickets from Bass, but I wasn't entirely sure, and I forgot to ask him on that Friday night, and so I wasn't able to really confirm it until Saturday morning. And the first thing that I did was I reached out to Keith via Twitter and said, I've got an extra ticket, and I don't get the impression that he has gone recently, and he couldn't go because he made commitments to bring people over his house to watch the game, and I know he would have really wanted to go, so I'm going to make it a point the next time.
He told me he hadn't been for 20 years.
It broke my heart when you told me that. So I'm going to make sure the next time I go that I remedy that issue. That won't be happening again. He was sick about it, and had I known that, I would have made sure, if I would have had an extra one, that I would have at least offered it to him the night before.
Yeah.
But anyway,
my last Rob Whiteism too. Before we switch gears again, I'm in the airport coming home, and I'm just sitting there. I'm on the airport. Well, I got through security in about 6 minutes. I'm like, oh, I got 2 hours to kill. What am I going to do? I took a video of a dancing Oreo, and I'm like completely bored. It was some of the stuff you see at Heathrow.
What the fuck off?
What?
Some of the stuff you see at Heathrow. But anyway, I'm up by the terminal, and I'm.
Right.
Yeah, it was a promotional thing. I'm up by the terminal, and I'm just on Twitter, and I'm popping some stuff out, and on Facebook as well. And all of a sudden, I get a text from Rob. And he says, Ken, I apologize profusely. I totally forgot that I had picked up a memorial program from Dave Mackay's funeral for you. And I need you to send me your address so I can send that to you.
Oh, wow.
And I told him, I was like, I'm flabbergasted. And I said, let me know how much I owe you for postage, and I'll get that to you. And then, that would be absolutely. He goes, oh, no postage, no anything. Just send me your address, I'll get it to you. So it's in the post now.
Awesome. Yeah, that speaks to the guy he
I'm
is.
Flabbergasted.
Speaks to the guy he is. Yeah. Well, and here we are an hour in, right? And we could probably still go for like another 2 hours, because we haven't talked about all the crazy stuff that we did, match day, which we transitioned to that now.
Yeah.
Our big Saturday.
Well, actually, before we leave, you know Mr. Anorak, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Captain Anorak. So, I've brought this up on the podcast before, and I was challenged by one of our guests, and I actually had to second guess myself, but it came up. We were talking about Spurs in the 80s, because a lot of the guys were our generation or around that age. So we're talking about, I think, A Touch of Genius and Glenn Hoddle, because everyone loves Glenn Hoddle. And so I brought up the Oxford goal and how he said in A Touch of Genius that it was his last game in front of the Spurs faithful at White Hart Lane. And I said to this person, Theo Delaney, no, it's not.
Yes,
it was the Manchester United game, which was the last home game at White Hart Lane when we won 4-0. He said, no. I said, I've got the press clipping. He said, well, the press clipping's wrong. And at that point, he's got me second-guessing myself, even though I showed you guys months ago that press clipping.
And we've talked about this on the show before.
We've talked about it.
Yeah.
So I just dug off my bookshelf Bob Goodwin's complete Spurs record, and the second to last game of the season was Manchester United at home. Hoddle played in it. We won 4-0. He did not score. It wasn't Oxford. And the last 2 games were away, I think, to Watford and Forest, which they both lost. So,
well done.
Captain Anorak won.
Good for you.
Esteemed guest who I would say nil.
Because Theo's a bit intimidating. He's a really
yeah. He got me on the back foot, and I'm like, okay, I'll back off.
Yeah. He knows his shit.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm just not worthy. It's not the first time I said that.
You would have told me that even if I knew that I was right. Yes, Theo.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Paolo, he was supposed to be there.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I met him Saturday. I'll tell you.
You wanker.
I did. But I told him.
I wanted to really meet Paolo Hewitt.
For Flav Bateman, I know is probably only paralleled by your man crush for him, and I told him that. I go, oh my God, if Simon was here. Anyway, so I'll tell you that later. But so.
Thanks for dropping that one. But you know what? There's nothing that can dent this weekend based on what happened, because we're gonna unveil what happened on match day next. And,
well, go on, son, lead us.
Well, so we were meeting Daniel Wynn, who is the commentator for Spurs TV, covers all home and away matches, who was on the podcast. He was the first. Actually, he and Julie were the first ever guests on our podcast. And I reminded him, said, there's only one first, Daniel, and just remember, you were it.
Yeah, you're right. Great guess to that.
So we met him about 11:30 when we got up to N17 that morning, and he gave us an official and an unofficial tour of the East Stand, and we won't go into exactly what we saw except for some of the gems. And I've been all around the West Stand, and I've done tours, but for some reason, having not done an official one, I'd never been over to the East End and the Cliff Jones Lounge and seen what's in there, and that was truly amazing. And seeing the wall with all the photos from back in the 60s and the 70s, and the Bill Nick memorial game from earlier this season against Newcastle that was signed, and the old THFC shield that we referred to, the Heritage Sash, the original one from the old East Stand, was there, and great photo opportunities for us. So we had a great time with Daniel, and he walked us around to the West Stand, where we were to meet Stacey Haley and Jonathan Waite, who was our tour guide for the Tunnel Tour. So I think
this is where it all kicks off.
This is where it all kicks off. So we're waiting for the corporate crowd, the Prawn Sandwich Brigade, to do their tunnel tour and the dressing room tour, and all the supporters clubs are around after that. But they had us hold back just to let those folks go through, which was good, because it was a lot of people. So we're outside in the sunshine. We're just standing outside the West Stand entrance, and I see this older gentleman walk over towards the Park Lane, and I'm like, wasn't that Alan Mullery? And I think, Sam, you looked over and said, yeah, that was Muller's. But he went, and so we're standing there going, oh, well, that was kind of cool. We didn't say anything to him, but he walked off. And then I turn around as Ricky Villa and Mickey Hazard walk out. And I will unashamedly say, I went straight up to Ricky Villa, and I shook his hand and said, you know what, that's not good enough, and I gave him a hug. I said, that's for that goal in 1981. I love you, man.
You poked him right in the pocket, didn't you?
Hey, listen, so
bring it down to the gutter level and ruin the moment. I was just astonished at that point, and I thought, perhaps he's a bit freaked out by all the beer on my breath. I'm like, no, I haven't been down the pub yet.
The way that worked is that you and I are looking at Muller's, and then we literally turn around, and Ricky's right in front of us.
Absolutely, yeah. I couldn't believe it. I was, you could have knocked me over, and I'd have not gone
And Mickey is walking right behind him.
I know my role. I know my role with the chairman. Chairman gets pole position, so I just sat there, and I'm going, Ricky fucking Villa. It's Ricky Villa. And I've said, and I think I may have said it before in the cast, I mean, my seminal moment of becoming a Spurs fan was when we signed them. When I remember reading the Mirror, Spurs shocked the world, and I thought, man, this is sexy. Like, nobody else is signing players like this. I think I'll have a fancy to Tottenham. So I've always had, no matter that Hoddle is my idol, but Ricky and Ossie, and I just always. And then I read Ricky's book, and so when you got through with him, I don't do very well with, like, people of, I don't know, celebrities. Like, I don't know what it is. I'm not an unconfident guy, but I just kind of shrivel up with guys like that. But I told him, I just said, I have to tell you, with all the great players that we have, you are the reason why I became a Spurs. And you know what I did? It's so silly. Like, I was so, like, petrified, like rock star petrified. I told him, I said, I've read your book. I'm like, that's how much you mean to me. And I'm fumbling around on my phone, and I show him my Kindle, where I show him the title of his book. He shows him my Kindle. It says, and Ricky Villa. And I just told him that, what you did. And I said, became a fan in what was it, 78, I guess the summer of 78 after the World Cup. But I said, but what you did in 81, semifinal goal against Wolves and his 2 goals in the 81 replay. And you know what he told me? He's such a beautiful guy. He says, He says, it means so much to me. He says, I hear that a lot from people, and to think that I've had that impression on people is really, and I just said, okay, you can put a bullet in the back of my head right now. I'm done. I'm like,
there are very few goals that Spurs have scored down the years that make me a little watery around the eyes, and that is one of them.
Arms are standing up right now as you say that. It's true. Oh, no.
And you were so enamored with the discussion that you were having with Via. You missed Ossie coming out.
No. What the funny thing was, Ricky said, I have my man crush on Ricky Via. Says Ossie's coming. I'm like, I don't care.
Say that, and I was like, and my eyes never left, because you were talking to him at the time, so my eyes never left Ricky, never. Yeah. So I never knew that Ossie was even there until well after he was gone. You're like, did you speak with Ossie? I'm like, he was there? So I never noticed it.
You missed him?
I did. I never saw him.
Yeah, he never saw him. That's why I referred to that.
Him was when you guys posted pictures on Facebook. Now, I'll say this, and the last thing I'll say about all this is, so Mickey Hazard walked out with Ricky, right?
Yeah.
What a hell of a guy Mickey Hazard is. Mm-hmm. He'll take a picture with anybody, talk to anybody, couldn't have been kinder, more enthusiastic, just big beaming smiles in every one of our photos with him. What a fella he is. All right, I'm done.
Well, and I think he said, well, he learned that off me when we were talking about Mickey's goal, and I said, look, every time I watch that goal now, I'm actually not looking at Ricky, I'm looking at Crooksy, who's kicking air on the edge of the box, and Archie, who's waving his arms in the air saying, give me the fucking ball.
What the fuck off?
And it was just a surreal experience. Of course, Ossie came out, and I love Ossie to death. And on the grand scheme of things, Ossie will always get into my Spurs Ultimate 11 in the midfield instead of Ricky. But if it's on the merit of the quality of goals scored, then I'm sorry, Ricky's in ahead of Ossie.
Daniel, sorry.
Go on, no.
Let's go very quick. If you remember, I asked Daniel who his best player is in his mind. He'll say Ossie.
Ossie, every day. Mm-hmm. So now we're at this point in the day, and we just met three legends of the club.
And Mullers came back, and we still didn't say I'm sorry, and I feel bad because he lifted the UEFA Cup in his final game for the club as the captain.
Yeah.
I mean, that's legendary, but we dissed him. I'm sorry. If you're listening, Alan Mullery, which I know you're not, I'm sorry, mate. I do regret not having a word with him, getting a photo taken with Mullers, because he's a top fella too.
Yeah, he is. And so at that point, we had met and taken pictures with, not so much Sam because he missed Friday, Eric Lamela, Harry Kane, Ledley King, Ossie Ardiles, Ricky Villa, Mickey Hazard. Then we go in to go to our tunnel tour.
Yeah.
But hang on, let me just preface this.
I gotta have this moment.
No, you do. But I will preface this. I've never really seen you flustered before, Simon. I've never seen you flustered.
Okay, I got to give you the backstory. But first, we walk in and
do it.
So the 6, 7, however many of us. So I think Daniel left at that point. We took some pictures with Staley. She handed us over to Jonathan Waite, who was going to show us around. We met him at the training ground on Friday. We're almost going past, the reception desk towards the staircase on the west end and into the tunnel. I had to point out, in all this adrenaline and euphoria that's going on after having just met Ricky, Ossie, and Mickey, I had to point out the original Cockerel to King, because he walks right past it, and everyone takes a picture of the original Cockerel, brass Cockerel that's sitting there in the entrance. So we do that, and we're going through, and we're almost into the tunnel, and my friend Steve kind of tugs me on the shoulder and is pointing to the stairs. So before we announce who was there, back in 2010 when I was treated like royalty, and I'd gone to, I think, the West Stand Supporters Lounge prior to the Sunderland game midweek, and there was no one in there. And, I thought there might be. So I was disappointed. On the Saturday, I'm in a different VIP lounge, and I tried to go into the West Stand lounge that I'd been in on the Wednesday night. And as they opened the door, I saw Martin Chivers in there. And went, oh, great, Chiv's in there. I'll be able to meet him. That's awesome. Because he was he was my first idol back in the 70s, him and Pat Jennings. And I've always wanted to meet Chivers. I've met Jennings. I've never met Chivers. So I'll meet him. Person at the front desk said, no, you're not in here. You're in this other lounge, which was a better